President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected back in the country after holding a meeting with President Donald Trump. He will be jetting back ahead of the expected arrival of British Prime Minister Theresa May on Thursday.
First Lady separately, and after Presidents Trump and Kenyatta were done with their talks, they joined their delegations in the cabinet room, and this is where they brought out, the issues that they had set out in their position paper that had been worked on by the advance team that had even made their way to Washington prior to this.
All right, so as mentioned earlier, President Uhuru Kenyatta met with U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House in Washington and invited the U.S. to increase its trade and investments in Africa. Speaking during a bilateral meeting, President Kenyatta and President Trump also agreed to bolster the Kenya-U.S. partnership in peace and security, especially in the Horn of Africa region. Jackie Mariba is in Washington, and here is her latest report.
And Kenyatta were done with their talks. The meeting between Presidents Donald Trump and Uhuru Kenyatta began shortly after 9 p.m. Monday Kenya time. That was just around 2 o'clock or going to 2 o'clock in the afternoon DC time Monday. And they were able to walk through the South Lawn, the pictures that you are seeing there right now. They made their way to the Rose Garden, and then they ended up at the Oval Office. President Uhuru Kenyatta, First Lady Margaret Kenyatta, and their hosts, President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump. They had a brief conversation thereafter, the President separately, the First Lady separately, and after Presidents Trump and Kenyatta were done with their talks, they joined their delegations in the cabinet room. And this is where they brought out, the issues that they had set out in their position paper that had been worked on by the advance team that had even made their way to Washington prior to this Monday meeting. Issues that we are made aware of that were discussed as at now, including trade and investment. What we know so far is President Uhuru Kenyatta literally sought to position not just Kenya as a hub that is ready and open to partner with the United States and indeed the world, but also position Africa as a ready market and a ready resource as well. And the bulk of that meeting that they had, and as much as it pertained to trade and investment and forging these refreshed partnerships, so President Kenyatta tried to open up Africa in its entirety as a continent, and as much as he is the second African leader to be invited to the White House under the Trump administration, the president was very key in speaking on behalf of the African continent, saying it is time that countries like the United States focus now on Africa in as far as investments are concerned and opening a ready business market on the same. What we do know as well as it now is that questions to do with security were also on the table, and the help that the United States has been providing to Kenya and indeed the region were discussed with renewed efforts to ensure that anti-terrorism is something that will, moving forward, be a key partnership between the United States, Kenya, and her neighbors. We are also aware that in these meetings, the Big Four agenda was discussed, particularly to do with infrastructure and housing. President Donald Trump, while earlier speaking in the Oval Office, mentioned that Kenya and the United States were partnering on a large-scale infrastructure project to ensure that they have a road network that will be seen to fruition in the country.
We're working on a major infrastructure project, a massive roadway that will be record-setting in many ways, and we are going to conclude a lot of good things. We have the President's representatives in the next room, and we're going to be going in there, and we're going to be making some great deals for both countries. So thank you very much, both.
More importantly, we're here to pursue and to strengthen our trade and investment ties. which are already very strong. We have a good number of American companies in Kenya, and we want to see how we can strengthen that going forward for the mutual benefit of our two countries. And I believe that we will have very fruitful discussions this afternoon, and we'll have a lot to report at the end of it. Well, thank you once again, Mr. President.
President Uhuru Kenyatta, First Lady Margaret Kenyatta and the delegation left soon after that White House meeting. Remember, they will be hosting British Prime Minister Theresa May on the 30th, after which they will have to make their way to Beijing, China, to attend the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, joining 49 other heads of state and government. That is your brief from us here in Washington, D.C.